Hi, I'm Yinka, and this is The Hurt Locker, a podcast where we open a door into men's mental health. Come and go.
I mean, I'm 8 years sober, so I should point that out. I'm 8 years clean and sober. Where I come from, there's no such thing as an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
There's just someone that likes to have a good time. I ended up living in the streets. I ended up living homeless.
Have you personally been touched by suicide?
I am a suicide survivor. And I said to people, if the word makes you feel uncomfortable, you might fucking do something about it.
And what I'm hearing there is that we've all got options, we've all got choices.
Mm-hmm. The story you tell yourself is so important.
You're listening to The Hurt Locker, the podcast that opens the door on men's mental health. And for 2026, brand new year, we've got Iain Anderson, comedian and storyteller. Iain, welcome to The Hurt Locker.
Thanks. Nice to be here, Yinka. Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome, more than welcome. Did you have a good Christmas?
Had a great Christmas. Yeah, I ate too much.
Come on, I hate you already now. Go on.
No, because I know I heard in the last episode you're not really a Christmas fan. Would that be right? Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me then, what made it a great Christmas?
Well, do you know, Christmas is what I decide it is now. And the holiday, I live in Spain, so the holidays are a bit different here. Christmas goes on until the 6th of January. So it's a really long season in Spain. I got engaged just before Christmas, so that was really nice. Yeah. I wanted to get him before he got to know the real me. And he's trapped. But my partner is Filipino and his sister lives quite near here. So we had a lot of rice and pork and food that I didn't grow up with, but it was just about being together with the people I love. And we don't buy each other big expensive gifts, and we don't get into all that. We're adults. If we want something, we'll buy it now. So I think like I heard what you were talking about the last time about, and I made me so grateful that I'm not in the UK anymore, because the pressure to provide over Christmas is massive, and people get themselves into massive financial trouble trying to impress each other, and we just don't do that.
That's, you know what, I've seen that since. It wasn't something that my folks did, but when I lived in and around Liverpool, and you live on certain estates, and you saw the pressures of the kids having to have new clothes for Christmas, new this, new that, and then again, come Easter time, and it was like, wow, the parents are buying everything on tick.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, don't buy into this BS.
I think as well, like, I'm 41, so when I was younger, we weren't getting bought iPhones and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, it's Christmas, and you see children running around with a better phone than me, and that's insane. So it's quite it is a stressful time, but I think you have to just be okay with not being popular and just doing what makes you really happy. And as you grow up and you've gone through some certain things, you realize that all that's important is the people in your life, and that's what we did with that day. I also gained a couple of kilos, and I'm so grateful that I've got enough money in the bank that I can get fat now at Christmas. So, not a lot of comedians can say that. Yeah.
I know. So, you've shared with us that you're living in Barcelona. You have done for the past 14 years, but I can tell by the accents you weren't born and raised in Barcelona.
I'm obviously French. No, I grew up just outside Glasgow. I grew up in a town called Port Glasgow, which is the Liverpool of the West Coast, if you like. No, I mean it's a working class town. It's I talk a bit about it in my show, and just really. It was I was born in 84, so it was a different it's much different to the life I have now in Spain. But really honest, hardworking people with a lot of that. I'm 8 years sober, so I should point that out. I'm 8 years clean and sober. I got clean in 2017, and where I come from, there's no such thing as an alcoholic, right? There's just someone that likes to have a good time. And I would certainly say that once I left home, was when I started to realize I probably had a problem with life and stuff. So people work hard, drink hard, and die rough, you know.
Yes. Do you have any siblings?
I do, yeah, I have a younger sister. Yeah.
What's your
Yeah.
relationship like with her?
I don't have a relationship with my family, so I haven't. Part of it's my fault for sure, and part of it, yeah, I haven't. So I'm 41. I haven't seen my family since I was 19, so it's been a really long time. And the last couple of years, I've been doing comedy for sure. I'm a bit of a public figure now. Like they'll definitely see me in the papers and stuff in Glasgow. So it's really, I'm in touch with an auntie, my dad's sister, but I don't really have much connection with my mum and my dad. Any connection with my mum, my dad, my sister, which in some respects is really sad, but they are also on their own. What I'll say is I'm the only person in the family who is sober, and the likelihood of me being the only person in the family with an alcohol problem is very low.
I hear you.
Right. So it's a family illness.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I was talking to a friend about this the other day. I ended up living in the streets. I ended up living homeless here in Barcelona while I was drinking. I might have ended up in the streets, but somehow I've ended up with a better life. Because hitting rock bottom was the springboard I needed to get my life together. And so I think it further proves to me that where you came from doesn't need to define you. And just because it's your inheritance, you don't need to blame it for your future. You can just, once you inherit it, it becomes your shit to clean up. Are we allowed to swear on this podcast? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
No, and what I'm hearing there is that we've all got options, we've all got choices,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. The story you tell yourself is so important. And some people go through horrific things. I have been through horrific things, but I'm not like a victim of my circumstances. And I think as well, the story I tell myself on a daily basis will decide whether I move forward or sink backwards. So let's say, I ended up living homeless on the streets for a year. My life was at risk. I tried to kill myself, all these things that you hear with people with drug addiction. I could keep playing that in my head and be like, poor me, I've had this terrible past. Or I could be like, I don't want to continue to have a life like that. So I'm going to tell myself a different story. And I decided it's one of the reasons why I became it's a skill I've always had is storytelling. I was a compulsive liar when I was younger and in my drug addiction. That actually I've been able to tell myself better lies. And about 8 years ago, it would have been 9 years ago when I first went into recovery. I just decided that this isn't who I am anymore and kept repeating that to myself until I believed it. And so the stories and the narratives that we bring into ourselves and we believe is to be true, like I can't learn languages, I'll never earn money, I'll never be able to stop drinking. I'm 39 when I became a comedian. It's too late to have a career change. Like, what is the evidence in your life that that's true? Like, depression runs in my family, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but you might be the first person in your family to do something about it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And you know what? This is what the Hurt Locker is all about. If you can just have an impact on one person's life, then again,
it's worth it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell me, your formative years, you're running around the streets and that. When did I was going to say, see, you've used the word a few times now, addict or addiction and all that. And I don't like that as a word. Why? Because for me, it takes away from who that person is, if that makes sense.
I think, no, I hear what you're saying. I think, again, it's kind of like your position on Christmas, isn't it? Like, you get to redefine what that word means to you. Same as people with the word God. I came into recovery. I did not like that word. And now it's a word I'm comfortable with. It's just a pronoun. So I think that, like, the word addict to me means the day I call myself an addict was the day I was free. And the only reason I say that is because I went through my whole life trying to work out what was wrong with me. I felt like, and I'm not unique in my experience, but every addict I've met goes through life feeling like they didn't get the manual on how to live life correctly. And then when I realized there was not only a name for it with a diagnosis of what that might look like, but if there's a diagnosis for what you have, it means A, you're not special. And it usually means there's a solution. And so people that, in my experience, who are addicts, who don't like the word addict, are also people who are still drinking and drugging a lot of the time. And they feel it as like a personal attack. And I could understand that. The word addict, where I come from, Glasgow, needle in your arm, dying in the street, all that dirty stuff, train spotting. It didn't look like me because I did cocaine. You know what I mean? So I was so fancy. But at the end of the day, that word for me now gives me access to the solution that's available to addicts, and I have a great life. So,
Brilliant.
Ian,
I'm not gonna argue with you.
Yeah.
Your explanation of that word is brilliant. And
again, it's about what you want to tell yourself. If you don't like it, don't use it. You know what I mean? Some people don't like, some people hate being Scottish. Look at Lulu.
I was just about to do a rendition of Shout, but I thought,
no, you're not warmed up. He's not warmed up.
No, I'm not warmed up. Indeed. Where can we go?
So you were saying about my younger years. Yeah, I grew up.
Yeah.
So I grew up, my dad's a welder. My dad was a welder. My mum worked in a factory. And so we grew up, there was always a lot of drinking. So I don't know when you were born. I was born in 1984.
I'm a Generation X baby. Yeah.
I'm so cool. I don't know what that means. And, but it was house parties, wasn't it? It was house parties. That was what people used to do. Yeah. So, like, responsible adults had their children in a room locked away with flammables and sugar. And then in the other room was your mum dancing with tights on her head to Rod Stewart. And there was a lot of fun that happened in those houses. And I was really good at conning people out of money. I used to charge people £1 to use the bathroom and stuff like that.
And very entrepreneurial. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. I think the technical word is a skank. So so it was great. And we grew up in that kind of environment where drinking's really normalized. But what I will say is we always, there was two messages in our house. We don't have any money, but there was always drink in the house, right? So as I grew up, I was like, well, that's not a luxury, right? So now that I'm in my 40s, if somebody tells me they're broke and they've got bottles of whiskey in the house, they're not broke.
Absolutely. Spot on.
It's about choice, and now that I'm sober, I have a lot of compassion around where I come from, because we're not dealing with bad people, we're dealing with sick people. And where I grew up, mental health wasn't a thing. People didn't have names for the problems they had. So if there was no name for it, how were they going to get help? You had a depressed mother, a workaholic father. My dad worked night shift from when I was a teenager. So he worked in the shipyards at night. It was just like, it was we're passing ships in our house. And I think that made me, and I've heard this a lot from people, hyper independent, which meant I thought I was grown up. I was not.
Were you a happy child growing up?
I think so. I mean, I certainly was manipulative. That's because you have to imagine, I grew up very gay in an area that was not full of gay people, and in the 90s. So I went to high school in 1996. What were we saying about gay people in the 90s? They've got AIDS and they're child molesters, right? That is what people. I came out when I was 14, and I tell a story about this as part of my stand-up. But a guy in my church asked me when I was 14, "Oh, you're gay? Does that mean you're a paedophile?" Which is mental. I mean, nowadays that guy would go to jail. this was an elder in my church, and everyone laughed. So, like, first of all, I was too young to be one, right? But secondly, like, what kind of thing is that to ask someone? And I think this is why, with younger gay people now, I think they don't realize how good we've got it because,
In comparison, yeah.
yeah, it was terrifying,
Yeah. Sorry,
Mhm.
but can I
Yeah,
ask
go ahead.
on that point?
Mhm.
You came out at the age of 14. How was that received? How was that received by your mum, your dad, your sister, the
They
rest of
were
the family?
fine. Oddly, they were fine. I came out to my granny first.
Why granny?
Oh my God, because my granny was my best friend growing up. And if that doesn't tell you I'm gay, I don't know what does. No. So my grandmother lived half a mile down the road. It was my mum's mum. And her husband, my grandfather, died when I was 8. He was this American guy, and he was so fun. I just remember him being so fun. And so after he died, because my gran lived round the corner, I took it upon myself to become the man of the house. I was there every single day, bar none, until I left home. I left home quite young when I was 16. But my gran and I had an amazing relationship in the sense that our house was quite chaotic. And sometimes I'd go to my gran's, we'd watch 15 to 1 and Ready Steady Cook. We wouldn't even talk to each other. I'd make the endless cups of tea and then I'd give her a kiss and I'd say, okay, I'll see you tomorrow. And when I left home, she was the most heartbroken. And I would say out of everybody in my family, he was the person that really, the only person in my family that saw that I could have done great things with my life and was very encouraging and didn't think any of my ideas were crazy. And so when I decided I was going to come out, it's a really funny story, right? So we're watching 15 to 1 and it was the final. And it was like 2 minutes into it. And I said to my granny, I need to tell you something, right? And she muted the television. This story's in my show because I love it so much. She muted the television and I said, Granny, I'm gay. And she went, we're watching the final. And she unmuted, she unmuted the television. And then when it was over, she muted again. And she turned around and she went, duh. Like, your dad owes me a tenner. It was like, and I think it was a generational thing. I mean, she was in the Second World War and she saw stuff where we grew up. The River Clyde was all bombed. I mean,
Yes.
she had seen terrible things in her life. And I always think about my granny, particularly now when we talk about mental health. I think my grand's generation were all going through it and understood that they were all going through it together. And that's why they had lower rates of suicide. My granny wasn't sitting there crying into her cups of tea for the rest of her life about all the things she'd seen in the war. She didn't wear it like a badge. It made her more resilient. And that was one of the great lessons I learned from her. She says, nobody really cares about your life as much as you should. So just get on with it, Ian.
100%. I get a sense as well. I'm not saying that family life or your home with your mum and dad and sister wasn't safe, but I get a sense that nurturing and everything, you got that with your granny.
Definitely.
It was
It
the
wasn't
safest place.
exactly. I would say my family home was just not emotionally safe. I think that if I said I had a dream or an ambition, people kind of rolled their eyes at it and laughed. Like there was a lot of ridicule in our house, and that actually was something I did to people, which was really hurtful, usually partners. In my very first boyfriend, who's a really good friend of mine, but I was so critical. I
You
grew
did
up
that
in a
off.
house because it was how I was taught to be that way. I was critical. That's what family looks like. Do you know what I mean? So
Okay.
I didn't know that that's not what you did. That if you were angry at someone, you just, we've got very fiery tempers in our family. So we would throw a cup or kick a door or punch a wall. I didn't know that you didn't do that until I was 18. And I did stuff like that. And people were like, I don't want to ever talk to you again. I was like, oh, it's fine. We're just having a, you know. So it took me a long time particularly around my anger, to realize that especially I'm 6'2", so when I lose my temper, I scare people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like gay or straight, you're still a guy who's
Absolutely.
6'2", swinging his
Absolutely.
fists about, you know?
Absolutely.
Like, oh,
When did that realization come to you that you don't have to be angry to be able to articulate your emotions?
I think I was actually 2 years sober, so it was a long time. I got sober at 33, and at 35, I had this lovely boyfriend. He was Latino, so he loved to lose his temper as well. Okay. But that's not racist. It's just a fact. And he was very Colombian. And the two of us, when we started arguing, and one day I remember I got so angry, I thought I was going to faint. And I realized it wasn't the drink. I was 2 years sober. That's when I realized. I always thought when I got sober that all these things that had progressively got worse as I got older, right? You don't pay attention to your like, your defects, if you like, then
Yes.
they will get stronger. You don't deal with your depression in your 20s, you'll be really depressed in your 40s. You're quite angry in your teens, you'll be very angry by 35. And I had just blindly assumed taking alcohol and drugs away was going to make me a better person. And actually, it was worse because when I did lose my temper, there was no numbing of that,
Absolutely.
and there was nothing to blame it on. It was all me.
Like I said before, there's so many different ways to go with this. And I love the warmth of you.
Thank you.
You spoke a little bit earlier about living on the streets of Barcelona. I mean, what first attracted you to Barcelona?
Well, it wasn't the streets. I tell you that. They are not as comfortable as you might think. I know a lot of tourists pass out on them every summer, but
Wranglers, yeah.
yeah, do you
Yeah.
know it's so funny about we were talking before we were recording about the kind of like the lies you tell yourself, and like if you had asked me before I got sober why I moved to Barcelona, I'd be like, oh, it was just the sun and the healthy food and the hot guys. But actually what happened was I had been to Barcelona a couple of times on holiday, and I loved the city. And I'd been here, I ended up here on my own. And I remember the first time I was here on my own, could not believe how cheap the drink was. Right. I was like, can you believe a bottle of wine is 90 cents in Spar? The same stuff that costs us a tenner back home. That's definitely the sign you have a drink problem, right? But also, I'd been getting myself into a lot of trouble with friends because of my behavior in the place I was living. And I had my eye on Barcelona. And one day I just kind of came here on holiday and I decided not to leave. That was it. I was meant to be here for a week and I stayed and decided to start again. I was 27 and like now that I'm 41, sober, quite sensible in the way I move through life. Um, the fact that I think it's a mixture of being a bit mad, but also being in your 20s. I had a few £100. I was like, let's see what happens. And it was quite chaotic. I had a lot of fun, but around that time, it was 2011. There was a lot of foreigners coming in like me from all over the world. And it was so easy to get started here. And I got a job quickly, but it has an incredible party scene. So, like, you never need to go home. I
Yeah.
mean, you could be out the nightclubs. First time I went to a nightclub here, right? I turned up at 12 o'clock and it wasn't open.
My type of club,
I was like, what? And then I said to the guy, he says, we open at 1, but nobody's going to get here until 4. I was like,
absolutely.
oh God, I better get a bag of sniff. So I was like, my God. And that was it. The clubs are off. And it's also the kind of city where people there's an arrested development. Like you see people in their 50s skateboarding with a bottle of Jack Daniels, like stuff that they would get a proper doing back home. And there's a Peter Pan-ness to this city.
Yeah.
And so I was doing things in my 20s that I didn't even do when I was a kid,
It's funny I mean, I've been to Spain a bit and that, and the contrast between Madrid and Barcelona is palpable. It's
Spotless. Madrid is spotless. Yeah.
palpable. But yeah, I do prefer Barcelona without a doubt.
It's a great town, and I've had 2 lives here. I mean, I got clean in July 2017, and I thought after I got clean that I would have to leave. Since I got sober, I've had 3 different lives, and what I would say to people, if you know, and that's why I love doing mental health podcasts, because the all that stuff you hear, it's always darkest before the dawn and blah blah blah. The 8 years I've been sober, every year I'm wrong about myself in some way, shape, or form, and my life gets better. And all those things I thought were not available to someone like me become available. And even before I got into comedy, I was like, nah, I'm too old to start doing something like that now. I left my corporate job last January, and now I do this all the time. It's just like my love life was a mess. Even the first few years I was sober. And then just when I was getting into comedy, before I did Edinburgh Fringe for the first time in 2024, I met the guy who I now live with and I just got engaged with. All these, when you're not well and when you're in your darkest, lowest point, you cannot imagine a future for yourself. And you always think you're the exception to the rule.
Yeah.
And life is a rule, an energetic rule that if you put out good things will eventually happen for you. And it's so painful and slow. But when I started to really take great care of myself for myself, because I love myself, I attracted everything I thought was not possible for me.
100%. And you know what? You just preempt what I usually ask people at the end. Who's the most important person in your life?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, other than my dog, no. The most important person, I'm the most important person in my own life.
Do you embrace that fully?
I have to. You know what I mean? Because if you've ever been in a state, I assume some of your listeners have been contemplating hitting the delete button and all those other things, right? The kind of podcast. I've been there myself. I've woken up in psych wards. I've been sectioned. I've lots of things have happened.
Iain, if you don't mind, talk to me a little bit about that, because I think that's something that it is a cornerstone of what we're talking about here. In fact, maybe a little bit of research for you in terms of suicide rates in Spain and that. I don't know if you know anything like that.
I do, yeah.
Tell me a little bit then.
I do, yeah. I know that actually, and one of the reasons I like to talk about men's mental health is because of the suicide rates of men between 30 and 50 in Spain is 70%, 70% of the suicides are men between the age of 30 and 50. And my experience of living on the streets here as well is it wasn't gay guys like me. You know, it was straight men too proud who ask for help. And I know and this is quite controversial for me to say, but I think I get to say it because of the side of the aisle I'm forced to identify with. There has been an overcorrection when it comes to how we view, men and their feelings, and the messaging is very conflicting. It's like, be strong, be the provider. Gay men kind of get away with other things because we're like a woman's best friend. It comes with a whole other set of pressures. Like,
Absolutely.
You can't be a gay guy and not be into fashion. Like, what does that even mean? And I don't particularly love going to drag queen bingo. Apparently that makes me homophobic, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's like a cookie cutter. There's a cookie cutter way to be gay.
Hierarchy.
Yeah.
Hierarchy of gayness,
And
yeah.
I like the old school drag queens when their tits were made of socks, right? And so, and for a lot of my friends who have sons who are like 17, 18, they're kind of born they're now in this stage in their life where they're going to uni and they're apologizing for things because they feel like they have to carry the patriarchy or something like that, or they're being held responsible for the patriarchy. And the amount of, we can talk about our feelings, but when a man cries, it's embarrassing. When a man opens up, it's kind of like I was talking about my family home. There's a lot of ridicule. Like what we say, we want people to do when there's a mental health crisis, and how we react to when they do what we ask them to do are two different things. Like I'll give you an example. We're asking people to talk more about their feelings, and words like suicide, rape, and sexual assault will get you banned by the algorithm on Instagram. So imagine you're a young person, you get most of your education from your phone.
So, yeah.
You're being told at school, if anything bad happens to you, you must speak to someone. But the actual words that you would use to describe it are banned on the internet, right? So what is the message there? We're saying to people, use the word great, use the word. So we're kind of diluting people's ability to even describe what is happening
100%.
to them.
And it's funny you should say that. In the training that I deliver, one of the new learnings, and I'm seeing it more and more, unalived myself.
Mm-hmm. I hate it.
You know? And it's like, let's have honest, meaningful, straight talking conversations about suicide. And you're probably just in the bracket now whereby those adverts for cancer, they used to say the big C.
Yeah.
So if you verbalized it, it'd be contagious.
Yeah.
But now you see Macmillan's tea parties every day and adverts. That's where we need to go with mental health.
Yeah.
Talking about
absolutely. And do you know what I say? Like so I'm on a homeless charity here in Barcelona called Esperanza. I'm on the board of there. The thing is, when I was homeless, they actually helped me, and now I'm on their board. So it's like,
paying it forward.
Absolutely. And I love the word homeless. I don't know why everybody started saying unhoused. I only imagine people that say unhoused are people that have never been unhoused. And I said to people, if the word makes you feel uncomfortable, you might fucking do something about it, right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Suicide hurts. If suicide hurts you, what must it do to the families of victims of suicide, right? Like, if the word is painful, that is a natural response to something that's unacceptable. It's not in line with our morals. And I've never seen a bunch of homeless people protesting saying, please call us unhoused. I mean, that's not happening. So I think we're some charities have got too much money and a big highlighter. And this is not when we need to be correcting people's speech. We need to allow people to use words and angrily address things, because, when I first got sober, this bile that was coming out of my mouth was part of the healing process. And instead, we're pulling people up on the etiquette of how to describe their experiences, which I think is wrong. It's nonsense.
Have you personally been touched by suicide?
I am a suicide survivor. So after I got off the streets, was living with someone who's now my friend. She was a volunteer helping the homeless, also from Scotland, and she heard my accent, befriended me, and after a while gave me a place to live. And I should say that my life experienced this thing that I was so ashamed of for years, including once I got back into the corporate world. I remember going into my job and being like, someone in here is going to know that I'm a drug addict and I used to live in the street and blah, blah, blah. The irony is I now have a show called Traumedy, and I've been touring it all over Europe, and it's about that, right? So the thing that nearly destroyed me is actually not only the way I'm making my living, but my show is really helping people. Like it has a purpose. But I talk about this in the show. Like this, she's a very important woman in my life, Julie, and she gave me a place to live, started giving me money, and told me to try and get a job. So I've gone from being homeless to now a place to live. And I think that's the other disconnect is you give a homeless person a home and they're cured. But obviously the thing that got you to being homeless is probably, you don't just wake up one morning and go, I'm going to give this all up. There's like a slow decline in your mental health. And I wasn't aware of it because I'm the crazy person, right, in the story. And so I started taking the money and going out drinking. The only friends I had were the other people living in the park. So I didn't know anyone anymore. And I had this realization one night that it was all my fault and that everything I touched just turned to shit. And so I decided the best thing I could do for everybody else was to kill myself.
Because you
And
didn't want to be a burden.
I was tired of breaking people's heart. Like, I mean, Yinka, it was everyone, every single person that was in my life longer than a year just ended up destroyed. I mean, I couldn't be trusted. My best friend I've had since I was 4, he's still my best friend because he's a fucking idiot. But also, I think the reason is because we've known each other since we were so young. He always remembered who I was, right? And I somewhere in there, Iain Anderson was there for him.
Yes.
But anyone else, and he lost friends defending me over the years. So what happened was I had a genius idea. And I went to a very remote location in Barcelona. And when I woke up, I was in hospital. Someone found me. I don't know who. And I always say I woke up strapped to the bed, which I thought was cheeky because the doctor hadn't bought me a drink. But they sectioned me. And the thing was,
Don't worry, I was already on it.
so they sectioned the fucking food in the psych ward was delicious. I mean, it was so good. But that was the first time I was ever in an environment where people were talking about how they felt. And actually, when I woke up, I didn't wake up like, "UP, I'm alive." I tried to get the doctors to let me out so I could finish the job. So I know some people wake up with this, or relief. That was not my story.
No.
For about 2 weeks, I was trying to find a way. I was the only person that had no garden privileges because they knew I was lying.
Yeah.
I mean, they're professionals. And so once I left there, I was medicated. I was diagnosed with a bunch of things that I don't have because I lied to them about my drug use. And so I would always encourage everybody to be very honest with their psychiatrist, especially, to let them do their job. And then a few things happened, and eventually I ended up in the doors of recovery February 2017, and I was in and out. And then finally, 13th of July is my sobriety date, and my belly button, my actual birthday is the 9th of July. So my last drink was a big 4-day bender. And then when I was done, I was really done. And it was the best. It's funny because the first year I was sober while it was happening didn't feel that hard. But on paper, it was awful. No one was talking to me. So I had a mattress on a floor in a box room at this friend's house. And he's Dutch. So he was obviously going to charge me eventually. Dutch people and their money. You think the Scottish are bad? And then I couldn't get a job. I just couldn't find a job and all that. And the first 9 months were really heavy. And then I remember when I started working, I was 9 months sober. When I was a year sober, I got promoted. Like my life just started to take off. And slowly by slowly, I was able to build what has become the most incredible life. And what I always say to anyone who's ever thought about suicide is you should always hang out to find out what the credits of your own movie are like, and it'll be better than anything you've ever written, because I am as sure now about being alive as I was about being dead, and I was so certain that I was right about that.
Say that again about the credits.
Yeah, like you should always hang around for the end of your movie to see what the credits are like, because it is going to be better than anything you can make up for yourself. Like when you try, and the reason why I say that is when I predict my future, it's always the worst case scenario.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
And what I've got in the last 8 years is nothing short of a miracle.
You're blessed. You're blessed.
I think we all, you know, if anyone's ever got through the other end of suicide, you're meant to be here, right? If you think that people's lives are going to be better without you in it, you're just fucking wrong. Facts are facts. It is a long-term solution to a short-term problem. And the other thing I would say as well is success is not what you think it's going to look like once you get there. It's something, for me, I thought it was a lot of money. It was being famous. It was being better than you. I have such a comfortable, safe, like we were talking about my family home. my Christmas and my emotional safety, I've given myself something I didn't grow up with now in my 40s. That's what success looks like.
You know what? That's about you being able to parent yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Tell us about Traumedy, the comedy you take on the road, etc. You're a storyteller, you're a comedian. Tell us a bit more about it.
So I started doing comedy in July 2023, just before I turned 39. And just like an addict, after doing it twice, decided that for my 40th birthday the following year, I was going to go to the Edinburgh Festival. And I said it to a friend of mine in work. I was her boss at work, and she said, "See, if it was anyone else, I'd say that's crazy, but I actually think you're going to do it." And so I had a really big job. I was working as an operations manager for a medical emergencies team in an insurance company. So I had a busy job. And then at night time, I was out doing comedy, and I was out every, like, 5 times a week, and plus staying sober, going to recovery. And then I took the show to Edinburgh in August 2024, and I had taken like a sabbatical from my job. But during that time, I'd also met my boyfriend, who's now my fiance. I just don't like the word fiance. We're going straight to husband. Fiance sounds weird with a Scottish accent. And so I just said, I'll follow the show. That was let go, let God. I'll follow the show. And so I came back from Edinburgh and started performing the show. And before I knew it, in January of 2025, I had what would become a European tour. And it is the weirdest thing, right? So I went back to my job in January 2025 after taking my 6-month sabbatical. And as soon as I went back, I knew there was something wrong, that I'd made a mistake going back. And I was like, why did I come back? I came back for money. And so I was like, I should just leave. So I made arrangements to leave. And when I did, all these opportunities came. You have to make space. And I started touring the show. And then while I was on tour, a company reached out to me, and there's actually a documentary in production about me, my life, and the show. And recently I was doing a show in Ireland, and some guy put me in touch with some producers who are interested in buying Traumedy and turn it into a TV series. So there's all kinds of things happening. And again, I say that so people know that this is all coming from someone whose best idea was to kill himself. That was my best idea.
Brilliant.
The best thing I could come up with was to not deal with it, to end it. And actually, not only have I dealt with it, but through the process of doing comedy, I'm actually being able to be of service to others. And how great is that?
Absolutely. You're just smashing it.
Yeah. I saw there was a question that came up and I missed it. Sorry, is that in the chat?
We have a listener's question about Traumedy.
Yeah.
Okay. Question from Jamie. Hi, Iain. I know you've been performing comedy for a couple of years now, and it must be amazing to get the laughs and warmth from audiences. Iain, Jamie, are you after my job here? Stop it now. Well, what's it like when you're opening up to people about your trauma and experiences as part of your material? Wow. What's it like to cry on stage?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, I would say that doing comedy as a way to process your trauma is not a good idea. So I didn't do that. So I was 6 years clean and sober, 7 years away from being homeless when I started doing the show. And so I know some people use comedy as a way to deal with things.
They do.
I didn't do that with this show. But when I started doing the show, it wasn't my own trauma that used to upset me on stage. And it still upsets me on stage now, as I talk about a woman I lived in the street with. Her name was Holly. And she was this Canadian woman. Her mother gave me permission to talk about her in the show. And after I got clean, I still used to go back and see her. She was a heroin addict. Probably one of the most beautiful people I'd just one of those people that changed the course of my life. And I dedicate all my shows to Holly. But when I talk about her at the end, talk about how she died alone in the streets in Barcelona and how I found out about her death on the way to my company Christmas party. And she never expressed any suicidal ideation, always told me it was going to get better. Right? And I tell this story that she said, Iain, one day we are going to get out of this. We're going to travel Europe and we're going to go camping. And I'm like, we are camping. And if you did your Duke of Edinburgh award, you would know that. No, and she was so funny. And she always believed, she was like, you can't get used to this way of life. And it's that classic thing where she was so unwell that she could be really helpful for you and couldn't help herself.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about her still, I cry. And there are times where something happens in the room where there's an energy exchange as well. And I can feel how affected the audience is by the story. But people always leave saying how much they love Holly and how much they love my granny. And that's what it's really about. The show is about you being able to see your life through their eyes. And if people come up at the end of the show and felt sorry for me, it would have been the wrong show. It would have been attention seeking. I'm trying to show people what's possible. I'm trying to rehumanize homeless people and make them look like people again and not just that thing. The same for anyone that's ever had suicidal thoughts. So I think that at the beginning, to go back to the question, when I started doing the show, I would get very upset during the end of the show, always at the closing. But once you've done the show so many times, my relationship with it has changed because I love the impact that it has on other people. The thing I still really struggle with is I wait at the door when people are leaving and everyone comes for a hug. And the last line of the show is love other people like their life depends on it, because my life has, your life will. And I'm basically inviting everybody to be kinder to each other. And people come up and they tell me about their father who killed themselves, their brother who's an addict, that they too have been in that dark place. And that still gets me because you're, yourself, like you're absorbing so much of,
100%.
but what a privilege to be open to that.
It's a blessing. It's a blessing, And I think when you talk about Holly, when you talk about your nan, what come up for me, it's not just them, but for other people, it's about connection.
Yeah.
Meaningful connection.
And I hope,
Look,
that...
okay, I'm going to dive in there, but that's me every day, getting up every day, hoping that the day is going to be better. I can help somebody. I can help myself at the same time, I can model helping somebody else,
Yeah. And I think one of the things you need to get good with is, and this is the other thing about suicide. I know this has been a very suicide heavy discussion, but
not at all.
We tell people don't do it. It's the worst thing you can do. But people who survive suicide also are living in a cancellation culture where they're held to the worst thing they ever did 20 years ago. Like, we can't have suicide prevention unless we get rid of cancel culture, right? How many people need to die being held? Like Caroline Flack, I know, is a celebrity example of this, but just being completely bombarded. Like, I also had to stay alive knowing that there's lots of people out there that will never forgive me, and that's okay. I also had to decide whether I wanted to have a public job, knowing that there's people out there that I fucked over that I might not remember. Like, I was an addict, right? So I didn't not steal stuff or cheat on people or like just be a general asshole. Like, there's people out there that, if I was to even get a little bit more exposure, I'm sure they'd start, that's it. Like, it's part of the deal. But
absolutely,
what I say to people is you cannot live in that kind of fear, and you have to move forward with your life because of you, and just accept the fact that somewhere out there, there's some people that just don't want anything to do with you anymore. But what you can do is stop creating that, right? I might not be able to fix my old relationships. I might not be able to have the family that other people have. I can stop breaking people's hearts. I can stop letting people down. I can stop being dishonest. I can stop making more damage. And that has to be enough for me. There are people that no matter what I do for them, they will never forgive me. My granny died before I got sober. She'll never be able to see how I turned out, you know? But there are people in my life that have never known me that way and only know me this way. And it's about what you do moving forward. The past is the past.
100%. 100%. There's so much in what you've just said, Dan, as well. And I think we've got to be able to forgive ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Completely.
we survive with the tools that we're given.
Until they stop working. Yeah, until they stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's the thing, drink, drugs, sassiness, sense of humor. If you're using it as a tool to survive, then they will eventually have an expiry date. Like, I'll give you, like, I had a bit of a quick tongue when I was younger, and I can't do that anymore. It just hurts me, to be like that. And you can do anything for me as a sober person. I'm not saying everyone has to be sober, but I always say to people, you can do anything you want as long as it comes from a place of self-love and not self-destruction. So if the reason why you want more money is so you're better than someone else, you'll never feel better than anyone, right?
True.
Like, that's why I don't like New Year's resolutions. I think they're silly. I think they're over the top, and I think they come from the wrong place. They come from you measuring yourself against someone else's idea of success. If there's one thing that you could do, is to go away, decide what success looks like for you, and then no one gets to decide whether it's working or not except for you.
100%. 100%.
Like, I'll decide what a good life looks like. Like, as a gay guy, like, we're a monogamous couple. That's unusual. We are quite boring. We stay at home. We have 3 dogs, and we're not the most interesting people. When I'm out at night, I'm working, and there is that kind of stereotypical way that we should be living our life, or the way our body should look as gay men, or like all that kind of stuff. I had to get rid of all of that. The gay community and the gay nightlife is one of the reasons I was able to hide in plain sight as an active addict for so long. Because what you would call destructive behavior, they would call fabulous, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I was out every night of the week, and I was like, oh, I lost my job. Oh, they're like, oh, YOLO. Not really. And I tell you what, when I put down the drugs and the drink and I had no money left, none of those people were around.
Bingo. So, what's your Spanish like then? Oh, sorry, should I say Basque?
No, it's Catalan here, but that's all right.
Sorry, my ignorance there.
No, it's all right. My partner is a nurse, so he speaks English, and then his own language is Tagalog because he's Filipino, and he speaks Spanish and a bit of Catalan, so he's brainier. And my dog, he speaks really good Spanish. Yeah, little rascal.
So you're still touring?
Yes, I am. I'm going back out on tour. 1st of February, I start in Dublin.
Okay.
I actually just found out today this is an exclusive, because I haven't announced it online yet, but I'm going to be taking the show to Bangkok in February.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Can I just say as well, right?
Wow.
That's mad, isn't it? At the start of the joke is I'm going to Bangkok in February. I'm also going to Thailand. So I was professional comedian. I went to. Well, at the start of last year, I had 4 dates. I remember posting this, like, I'm going on tour poster, and I had Glasgow, London, Barcelona, Madrid, and I felt like Taylor Swift. I was so excited about it, right? And then the next thing, Paris was added, then Dublin, and then Prague, and then Berlin, and Rotterdam, and Amsterdam. And it was all, the thing I said to myself at the start of last year was, if it doesn't work, I'll just get another corporate job. I would always say to people, you're already living in your worst case scenario. this is as bad as it gets. If you're not enjoying it, this is as bad as it gets. I thought, I'll take a year. If it doesn't work, I'll just get another corporate job, work in a call center, shovel shit for money. I'm a grafter. And so it's all these things started to happen. And then I was in Edinburgh again. And again, then I ended up in Brussels, and it's just been so cool. So far this year, I have Dublin on the 1st of February. I'm going to be doing 2 shows in London, a couple of shows in Glasgow at the Comedy Festival. That's nearly sold out, so I might add another 2. I'm going to be. I'm dying to come to Liverpool. I know. I'm dying to come to Liverpool. And what I always say, this is for your listeners, if people want me to come to their city, I will come, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to Reykjavik in Iceland because people were DMing me and asking me to come to Reykjavik. So if people DM me and say, come to Liverpool, I'll get a venue. I'll be there. I just need
Come on, come on, Liverpool, make it happen.
Right,
Make
come on,
happen.
people. Yinka said so. I did some, when I was in London in October there, I met up with charity there. It's called Outside Edge, and they do theatre projects and theatre workshops for people who are in recovery from addiction. And that was one of the most rewarding days of my life.
Tell me why.
I went, oh man, addicts in recovery are so funny. I mean, they've got stories. Yeah, I mean, like so many stories. And it made me realize when I did that, the importance of expression in arts. And the only reason why I say that is as a person that grew up working class and was told the arts and music and theatre and comedy is for other people, get a real job. I've literally seen theatre groups, music therapy, painting classes, even if people are not good at it, changing their ability to function. They like just have that outlet. And with anyone with any kind of mental health struggle, anything creative is such an antidote to what's going on up here. And it was amazing to be part of that. So I'm always looking to get involved with charities when I'm on the road and see how I can help and see if I can offer them tickets and all the rest. So Liverpool's next. You heard it here first.
Yes.
I'm coming.
Good. Will you always live in Barcelona?
That's a good question. I mean, I think for now it definitely suits me. The weather's nice. My partner would love to live in the UK because for him it's exotic. Well, look, once you've had a Greg's.
Well, now
come on.
Now that that's that's a deal breaker, definitely.
It's a deal breaker. I tell you what, when I was on tour, I ended up in Belfast, and I used to live in Belfast, and there was no Greg's when I lived there. And I was there to see my friend. She went, "Do you want to go to Greg's?" And I went, when did you start a Greg's here? And I was so brilliant. Oh God, Jesus wept. So nice. For me, it's definitely, we love living here just now. I have to say, as I get older, I miss the sense of humor from back home. The way I always measure, I love going back to the UK because I've been spending a lot of time there recently because of my shows. The conversations you have with people in Tesco are game changers.
Of course they are. Of course they are. Of course
and
they are.
Liverpool's
and
like
home bargains and home bargains. you.
People get right in amongst it, and everybody is so friendly. And I'm now at an age where I'm really enjoying a cup of tea and a scone at Marks and Spencer's. I'm just,
nice.
I've nailed it. I've made it.
What about the States?
Well, I don't think I could live there. I used to want to obviously bring my comedy there. I'm seeing a lot of concerning behavior over there. I have family in the US and I have friends that I love there. I also have American friends here. I do think we're at a time where it feels like the world is imploding. And what I would say to people as well around this, and this is you have to lean into joy more than ever. I see a lot of people almost, whether they're martyrdom to what's going on, like posting all the time about the things that are going on that are awful. I get that. But making that their whole personality, do you not think that in these countries that are having problems, they would not love to have access to the privileges that we have. And we absolutely need to live life as fully as possible because there are people that can't live like that. That's exactly the reason why. Like, I didn't always have this life. I thought I was going to die in the street. Even after I got sober, I thought I would have a nothing life, that I would never amount to anything. And I have a fantastic life full of love and friends and access to all kinds of things. There's other ways to get involved with what's going on in the US and Palestine and all that. And you can donate, you can protest, you can vote. But what you can't do is lock yourself away and disconnect from community, because that's how it spreads. This is how it starts, because otherwise we are next, right?
You know what? It's that Pastor Muller poem. First they came for the Catholics, but I was not a Catholic, so I did nothing. Mm-hmm. Then they came for the trades unionists. Mm-hmm. Blah, 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 blah. It's true.
It's true. And every time I look at what's going on back home in the UK, it is also frightening to me. Like I'm not political in my comedy, but because I don't think anybody should die of addiction, whether you voted left or right. I want you to not kill yourself. Yeah. But I do see a lot of anger and hatred and people blaming the wrong people for their problems. And that's, since Brexit, I've not seen anyone get any richer or the NHS get any better. So, like, we're all being played off against each other. Yeah, and somewhere up the top, there's a rich guy that used to go to the school with the royal family.
Just laughing. Yeah, and saying, pulling the strings, what next?
And I tell you what, they've got us all, like, I used to work in the job centre a number of years ago, 20 years ago, and it was the same then. They want you depressed, and they want you addicted, and they want you overweight, and they want you to not like yourself. That's what they want, right? The best thing you can do to change the world is to take better care of yourself.
You know what? Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks.
Iain, we're coming to the end now. You'll close your laptop. Have you eaten this evening?
Yeah, I ate earlier because I didn't want to be hungry. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you're no longer angry. Are you going to take the dogs out for a walk, or?
I'm going to go down to a local theatre here and see a storytelling show. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. Yeah, it should be nice.
So before you go out, there's a knock at the door.
Yeah.
And it's 14-year-old Iain at the door. What do you say to him? What do you do?
Say, pedo! No, I don't.
Oh, no. I set you up for that one, didn't I? You knocked it out the park.
No. What do I say? You know what? I would love to be able to tell him that everything happens for a reason. I do think that as you're growing up, your 20s are for being self-conscious, your teens are for feeling awkward. And I do think that at the time I don't necessarily believe that absolutely everything that happens in your life is for a reason. What I do believe is how you survive it can be useful to someone once you're out the other end. And if you told me while I was homeless, one day you're going to inspire someone, I would have killed you, right? So there's no point in telling a depressed person that one day they're going to help someone. And I'm not going to patronize anyone and say, if you're suicidal and get through it, one day you'll save a life. That isn't going to help you right now. What I'll say is my experience has been, I've been through a lot of terrible things. And who I was when I was a teenager was who I was the entire time. I found myself again, and I like this guy now. And because I've been able to use my history as a way to show people where drugs can take you, where suicidal thoughts can take you, now I've been able to make sense of my own history, and it feels useful.
Iain Anderson, you've been a brilliant guest on The Hurt Locker. Thank you.
Thanks, Yinka. Thank you so much. I'll see you in Liverpool.
You will do. You will do indeed. Make it happen.
I make that
and that's
happen.
A wrap.
That's a wrap. Thank you.
The Hurt Locker is a safe space for our guests to openly share their mental health experiences. If you have been affected by any of the content in this recording, then please reach out for support. If it is an emergency, dial 999. If you would like to talk to somebody today, then please call the Samaritans on 116 123. Stay safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Hurt Locker. Please give us a rating or share with another listener. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Hurt Locker Pod.